usual. Make sure we are live here. Hope everyone's enjoying their day. All right, I'll get started. I think YouTube should catch up though. I am Drew Badger, the founder of EnglishAnyone.com and the English Fluency Guide. Welcome to another live video here on YouTube. Today we are continuing as I am showing the book early. So I've been working on a book and half of it is now finished and available. It's called The Strangest Fluency Secret, and you can click on the link in the description below this video to get it. So today I wanted to talk, first of all, to answer any questions. If people had a question or wanted to know something about the book or anything they would like to see in the book, because it is talking about fluency and really an alternative path to becoming fluent that most people don't know about, because I just haven't put it all in one place until this book. So nice to see everybody there. Making sure, so yeah, I guess it's weird, it's not showing up, but looks live enough. Anyway, nice to see everybody there. We'll go through some comments and then I'll get started. Gina says, hello, Leticia. I like that name, Leticia. It says hi. Arturo says hi. Edson says hi. Gina says, great to be live and also great to be alive. It's nice to see you there. Mike says hiya. Nothing says hi. And MJ says, hi, Drew, are you growing a beard? Not really. It's kind of hot here in summertime anyway, but I didn't feel like shaving it all off today. I'm kind of lazy about it. I think also while I'm writing this book, I feel like having a beard. I don't know, maybe there's some magic to that, but I don't know. Also, my wife hasn't complained about it so much, so we'll see. I don't know, but I mean, I don't know, I probably won't keep it. Hello, my great teacher, Hassan says, hi, sir, nice to see you. I'm from Nepal. MJ, like Clint in $1 Million Baby. Like Clint Eastwood, you mean? I haven't seen that movie. He has kind of like an even thinner face, but yeah, like that kind of, I'm getting that kind of old man, like look at that, it's like all white now. I've been on YouTube a long time. I'll have to make like a video of like a before and after, after many years on YouTube. But good to see you, Renee, Chotu, and Taku. And let's see, did I miss anybody? Yes, I think I got everybody there. Martin says with a thumbs up. Argo says, good morning. All right, if anyone out there has already gotten the book, I'd love to know your thoughts about it. If there was anything you didn't understand, so we already have just a quick review. So we have, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then very soon, Mike says, I look like Tom Hanks in Castaway. Yes, and Tom Hanks is probably the most common thing I hear from people, but I never really hear that in America from other people. But yeah, it's like a common thing. I think it's probably the short haircut, maybe like Forrest Gump or something like that. So the first couple of chapters of the book, so this is half of the book right here. The chapters 5 through 8 will be coming very soon. As I release them, I already have them outlined, and we're just finishing them and getting them out in order, but making sure, like some people have had questions, and I wanted to make sure I get everything lined up correctly, but so far, so good. So it's been working well. So chapter 1 is a better question. For those of you who are not in the early bird group for the book, so a better question, we're talking about what's actually stopping people from speaking, because I had the same problem and I wanted to figure it out. A lot of people all over the world, it could be people who live in the United States or people who do not live in English-speaking countries or even other English-speaking countries, but lots of people, even the people who you think would have every advantage, like living with natives, getting to speak every day, all of these things, and lots of these people are still not fluent. I still see this every day, well maybe not every day, but often here in Japan. So there are many foreigners who live in Japan, like even friends of mine who don't speak Japanese very well, and they've been here longer than I have. So it happens. It's not just about English, but again, living with natives doesn't guarantee fluency. So lots of people still struggle to speak. So in chapter 1, we talk about a better question and what we should be focusing on instead, which leads us to chapter 2. which is the real reason. The real reason I struggled to speak. I'm just going to put struggled up here so my head doesn't cover up the rest of it. So the real reason I struggled to speak, and so this is where I thought, like, I had a lot of these same ideas that many learners do. For example, I don't know enough vocabulary and that's why I can't speak. And so I need to continue learning more and more, and at some point, maybe, hopefully, that's when I finally unlock the ability to speak. So it's like 10,000 words or how many number of words you need. I was thinking that way. Or again, maybe needing to speak more or live with natives or be younger or whatever. But I discovered what actually stopped me from speaking, and that's what we talk about in chapter 2, and that's basically uncertainty. So when I was unsure about saying something, I couldn't say it. And this is really the core. It really doesn't matter how much you know if you're not actually certain about that. And this is a especially important chapter for learners. At this part in the book, we're really trying to help people understand that you can understand things if you maybe know things a little bit, like I could understand or follow other people, but if you're still struggling to speak, it means you are not certain yourself, and you need that certainty to express yourself. Does that make sense? Let's see. Hopefully. All right. I'll go back and check comments in a minute. But that leads us into what actually can help us get fluent, and that is the strangest. The Strangest Fluency Secret, which is the title of the book as well. So we get to that in chapter 3. So the first people who were joining the book got access to that right away. I just released chapter 4. When did I release that? Like 2 or 3 days ago. And chapter 5 is coming along pretty soon. But the Strangest Fluency Secret is where we discover maybe that there could be an alternative to what people traditionally do to become good speakers. So the typical thing that people do is they try to learn, and then they try to speak, and then hopefully at some point, kind of like what I talked about before, at some point, if I keep speaking, if I keep practicing, if I keep learning more vocabulary, at some point I will finally start speaking. But it's not really clear exactly how that happens, but this is the typical way that people learn. And there is a very high failure rate among people who learn because it's just a very inefficient way to learn. And what you discover later in the book, obviously, most people have found this out the hard way already, that it's just not really designed to make you a good speaker. So often the lessons that people get are the kinds of things that might help you prepare for a test. So you can learn specific things to answer specific questions on tests, but you might still struggle a lot with understanding natives or being able to express yourself. So in The Strangest Fluency Secret, we talk about the alternative that actually we could use to get fluent, because basically within all of the things that people might do to learn, like you've got speaking practice and other things like that, some of those things, although it's not very systematic for most learners, some of those things are giving us what I call aha moments. Aha moments. So aha moments are when you really feel like you actually learned something, you discover something, you have a breakthrough or an insight, something in that way. And so these kinds of things here, all of this other stuff here, you're doing it, but it's not really feeling like it's improving you. It could be, and an interesting thing about aha moments is that sometimes, like, we might get a piece of information here or here or here, but then somehow we get that last piece of information and they click together. And that's what we talk about in chapter 4, which is where aha moments come from. And then in chapter 5 going forward, now we're finally, and this is the thing that I'm talking about in the rest of the book, which is basically all tactics and strategy. So once you understand this stuff over here from the first half of the book, the second half of the book, so chapters 5 through 8, that's where we're really talking about what specifically you can do now that we have this information. So pretty good. What did I just want to say? Yeah. So chapter 4 was the most So chapter 4 is the most important question in language learning. So I answer that, and then we get into explaining how aha moments work. And what I'm writing right now for 5 is how to learn faster than a native. So what I wanted to talk about in this video, just to give a little bit of preview of the chapter and see if anyone has any questions, but I'll basically be talking about 2 main things in this chapter. And I've been excited to write about this for a while, but I couldn't just get to this at the beginning because you really need the foundation of these other chapters to understand this idea. I mentioned actually in, what was that, either maybe last week or the week before that when I was talking about magnetic vocabulary, but the things that I really want to talk about, we're going to split them into 2 different things here. So the first one, a lot of people struggle to make sentences. So we're going to talk about that. So how to make fluent sentences. And a lot of this, once you understand this idea, this makes a lot of sense, where a lot of people know English, but they don't know it well enough to feel certain. And so with those individual words, then it really becomes a lot more difficult to make strong sentences out of things. So if you think about it like a bunch of pieces of, blocks or something, you can think about these different blocks as the vocabulary that you have. These are different words, like this is the word to, and this is the word go, and other things like that. And so often what non-natives are doing when they learn, and this is people learning really any language, is they will have lists of words that they study like they're individual disconnected pieces. And you might maybe get some translations and remember what they mean, or some people who try to be good students, maybe they would take a word like to and then try to remember every use of that word, which is really frustrating to try to remember, and it doesn't really help you express yourself better because you're kind of struggling and thinking about exactly what you want to say. So what I show you is at the base of this, what's really stopping a lot of people from making fluent sentences is the actual pieces from the various vocabulary, so the things they want to say. These individual pieces are weak. So it's kind of like a chain like this, and maybe you know the English expression, or you have something similar in your own language, which is the chain, like the weakest link in the chain. So each one of these little pieces is called a link in the chain. And so a chain is only as strong as its weakest link. I'll say that one more time. A chain is only as strong as its weakest link. So for example, like let's say this link right here isn't very strong, it breaks easily, and of course that breaks the whole chain. Okay, so we're breaking the chain over here, oh no, and this is usually what happens to people when they're trying to speak. So if anything in a whole sentence isn't working, then of course the sentence itself will not work. So you won't be able to express yourself, and we want to get to the point where, like I'm speaking right now, I'm able to speak without having a real plan about what I want to say. I don't know the exact words, but because my vocabulary is so magnetic, and this is the other thing we'll be talking about here, magnetic vocabulary. So we want these pieces like this, like almost like magnets, to be able to snap to each other very well. So that changes how we learn vocabulary. We're not just trying to get examples of things and maybe a list of things. We really want to see how things connect. And so as we do that, it helps us understand the individual word better, but also it shows us how these different things connect. So for example, we have things in English called collocations, which is like if we have a word like get and you ask a native. I actually did a like kind of a game show kind of video a few years ago where I talked about this, where if you give a native speaker a word like get, they will naturally give you words that follow it because they have this magnetic vocabulary. They have made their vocabulary magnetic by knowing it very well, and knowing how it connects to other things. So for example, you might have like get lost. That's a very common collocation. Like if you tell someone to leave, like, hey, get lost. Like, I don't want you to be around anymore. So you might see a phrase like this in a movie or a TV show, something like that, to get lost. Or I might like get over something, like if I feel bad and, you know, you can understand like, I don't know what I want to do about something. I need to just get over it. I need to like physically, you can think about it, this phrasal verb, like to go from here over something like that, like just move on, keep going, get over something. I think MJ just gave another example, but there are many of these, like get up, get away, that kind of thing. And so the point here is not necessarily to memorize these, it's to get real examples. There's that word get again, so get examples. Get exposure, get used to the language by seeing lots of good things in context. And so we'll be talking about that in chapter 5, talking about making fluent sentences, how that works, but you can't get to fluent sentences until you get like fluent words, if that makes sense. So again, the same kind of thing with this chain over here. If you want a fluent chain, you have to have fluent links. You have to be certain about each of those particular things that you're learning or that you want to say, and that's what actually allows you to speak. Okay? So, if anyone has read the book already and they have thoughts and want to tell me like any questions they have or how it's been helpful or not, let me know. So in case I need to go back and change pieces of it. But again, I think so far so good. People have been enjoying the book, sending me mails and letting me know how they like it. And it's been very helpful because what I'm trying to do, not just teach you some English. This is not a typical textbook where we're going to give you a bunch of things to memorize. The point is we really want to help people understand and change the way they think about learning. Because if you can do that, there is really this alternative way to get fluent, which is much faster and easier than the typical approach. So this is, again, something I discovered and started using it to teach myself Japanese, and it's the same thing I've been teaching in these videos and just for as long as I've been teaching, which is 20 years now, over 20 years. Wow, that's a long time. So YouTube is only 14 years or 15 years, I think. But still, even that is a long time. I'm like a dinosaur in internet times. I mean, YouTube is only from 2006. So I was, I don't know, I guess a couple years after that started. But anyway, so I'm excited to release chapter 5, and that should be hopefully in the next couple of days. But yeah, and you can let me know if you have any questions. But this is, again, we're talking about how to learn faster than a native because it actually is possible to do that. So I will talk kind of briefly about that. Most people think the best way to learn is kind of like we talk about, like learning like a child. And we need to understand really what we're talking about. So I've mentioned this before, like learning like a native or learning like a child, but we actually can do much better than that. So if you think about how children learn, and I spent actually like half an hour explaining the book and how to learn to some friends of mine who didn't really know I was working on a book or even what I do for helping people learn. But they were very interested because they're also trying to learn Japanese. And so I was talking with them about how this works because the same exact philosophy and methodology and techniques that I'll be covering in the book, you can use this to learn any language. But again, I've only tested it with English and Japanese and it's worked quite well. So, you know, you'll see what happens if you try it with something else, but no reason why it shouldn't. Anyway, when we're talking about how children learn a language, typically they're getting lots of input, but it's not very efficient. And many of the pieces of information they get are not actually understandable. And so when kids are watching a movie, maybe they understand 30% or 40% or something, and they're just enjoying what's happening on the screen, but it's actually quite complicated. Like if I'm watching even a cartoon with my 2 daughters, so I have a 9-year-old and a 6-year-old, and we will watch SpongeBob SquarePants or something else like that. Excuse me. And so whether these are things in English or Japanese, they will be able to understand some of it, but not all of it. The same thing with me. Like I might be watching something and not know something in Japanese, and I might understand a lot of it, but maybe there's a new word or two that I don't understand, something like that. Anyway, so the point is, if we can be more efficient than a native in that way, we can actually get fluent faster than a native. So I talk a lot more about that in chapter 5. So chapter 5 should be another interesting chapter, and then we've got still 6, 7, and 8 coming after that. But if you'd like to learn more about those, you can click on the link in the description below this video to get the book. And I'll just go back and check chat now. See if anybody has any questions. Where did let's see. All right. So, Adam says, hi, sir. I have the same problem. When I listen, I can understand, but I can't remember and can't speak fluent. What should I do? Get the book. So another reason I wrote this book is because I want to have the whole picture here. If I just told you one little thing you could do, it probably wouldn't help you very much. And I mentioned this in the introduction of the book, where I didn't really want to write a book. I would actually, sometimes I'd rather do something easier with my life, like, I don't know, sell ice cream or something like that, where it's just like, here's the ice cream and either you like it or you do not. It's pretty easy. But with language learning, and I was explaining this to my friends over the weekend when I was talking about this stuff and helping them understand, because it was a perfect example of when they were saying, oh, you're writing a book, what exactly, what is it, what's it about and how does it work? And I said, well, it's about helping people learn languages and giving them an alternative way, especially for English learners, but these things can work for anybody trying to learn a different language. And I basically said, I'll tell you what it is, but you probably won't believe me. And I said, the basic idea is that you can actually become fluent before you speak. And they were like, what? Like, how is that possible? And so that's what's happening. But it takes a whole book to explain that because people won't believe me. All right, and that's because pretty much everyone has had some kind of language instruction, like second language education, Maybe you go to school, you have to learn a different language in a classroom, and for most people, it's a bad experience. Some people have good times with it, and some people do get fluent with that. It's not like it won't get you fluent, it's just a much more difficult way to go through the process of trying to learn a language. But it's because people don't know a different way to do it. And so when I discovered a different way to become fluent, this alternative approach that I now use in all of my videos, that I use by myself when I'm learning Japanese, or that I use to teach my own kids, both English and Japanese, now that changes everything. But again, it takes the whole book to go through and explain that. So if you'd like the answer, pretty much every major question people have, and that's a very common question, like, why do I understand but not speak? And the reason is that you just lack certainty about the things that you know. So what happens with most people is like what's a good way to describe this? Or I'm trying to think about like a new way or just a different way to describe this problem so people really understand it. But I think now in the book, people really get the idea. Like people have told me like, yes, like now I finally understand what my problem is, and they feel very good, like, okay, now we understand, now we can fix it. Because if you don't really agree and you don't understand what the problem is, then it's going to be a lot more difficult for you. Let me try to explain this in a new way. I'm just thinking about it now. Let's say you have a bunch of doors here, and you have a path walking up to each door. You can see my lovely art over here. You can think of each one of these doors as some kind of vocabulary, like a language unit. So a word or a phrase or a grammar point or pronunciation or whatever. Now, what happens is it's almost like there's a path to get there. So many learners, they learn a word, they understand that it's here, they know it's here, but they never open the door. They never get to that point where they really feel confident speaking. So they know a lot, and then they're like, all right, well, I guess I understand. Now I will move over into the new, to this, like learning other words over here. So they learn something and get almost to the point where they can open the door, but then they do not, and then they go to learn some other word, and then they do the same process again. So most learners, they're doing this, they do open some doors because they do feel confident expressing themselves about some things, but for the most part, a lot of these doors remain shut, all right? And so it's really, when I've explained this before as like different levels of understanding. So typically when we hear a word for the first time, we're getting just exposure to the vocabulary. Then we move up to awareness, where we actually understand something and we recognize it when we hear it. But to get into the door and start using something, you really need ownership. And ownership means I know the word, and it's just really another way of saying you feel certain about using something. So when you're trying to speak, that moment you're actually in a conversation and you're trying to express yourself, if you don't feel certain about what you want to say, then you won't speak, or you won't use that particular vocabulary. So in that conversation, I could, for example, listen and follow other people because I know enough. Like, you only really need that awareness level to be able to follow conversations. And that's because I'm not the one doing the work. I'm just listening to other people speaking. So I could hear some different words and maybe get the general idea of what the conversation is, but not know exactly maybe every word, or there's some things I'm just still not certain about, but I wouldn't be able to speak like that person. So maybe you can understand what I'm saying, but if you have trouble speaking the way I do, that's the problem. So we talk about that again in chapter 5, which is making sure you actually get to these doors and open them up. I don't use this idea in the book, and I think it would be a little bit more confusing to talk about it this way, but I think it works okay in a video. Let me know if this makes sense. But this is, again, the frustrating thing that happens to a lot of people. So they know things a little bit, they can recognize them, but they don't feel certain about them, and that's why they can't speak. All right? So that's the simplest way to explain it, but that's what we talk about. Like, really the whole first half of the book is talking about this and going into detail about what you need, what actually helps you, why you're actually struggling, and it really makes it very clear. And again, a lot of people have told me already that they've enjoyed the book so far, but I'm excited for actually the second half of the book, because this is where we really go into the specific things that people should be doing in order to follow these steps and actually implement this. All right, so good question. Again, I get this question or some version of it, I don't know, almost every video or almost every day in comments or questions like that, like, why do I know a lot of English but can't speak? That's the reason. And so I talk a lot more in detail about how that works, but that is like right there in chapter 2, where we're talking about what actually stops people from expressing myself. All right, let's see. Angelo says, hello. Edson says, Tom, look at that. Gina says, I bought the book, but I didn't save the link, and now I'm not sure to access again. The link below takes me to the same page to buy it again. If you're talking about the link below in this video, yeah, I mean, well, that's for people who already have it, but if you go to EnglishAnyone.com and click on the log in button, if you already purchased the book, that's where you can find it again. If you need any help, just send us an email at info@EnglishAnyone.com. Tuck says, I get more examples from cooking topics, and I feel like I've become confident about that. Yes, and that's how it works. And it's not really a surprising thing when you start looking at it that way and think, huh. I remember when I was, years ago, there was a barber shop I went to back in Chicago, and when I saw like a little sign on the door or something like that, it was like, if you hang around a barber shop long enough, you're going to get a haircut. Like, it just kind of happens like that. And in a similar way, if you watch a lot of videos or whatever content about a particular thing, then you will probably absorb that information. Now, the trick is, how can we do this as efficiently as possible? And so that's what we're talking about in chapter 5 and 6. Really, like, chapters 5 and 6 are the most important ones. for really giving people those the strategic like action steps that get people fluent. All right, and Rolla says, hello Drew, nice to see you. Nice to see you there. Johnny says, hello, I just got on. What's today class? You mean, what's it about? We're talking about, let's see, what are we talking about? We're talking about the first half of the book, which is available, and you can click on the link in the description below this video to get it. But specifically, we're talking about what will be happening in chapter 5, and that is how to start understanding things and developing your ability to make fluent sentences. Hassan says, teacher, you talked a lot about how you learn is how you speak, but how can I know what the methods I'm using while I'm learning will not make me fluent? And that's another good question too. That's exactly the thing I talked about in chapter 1. So this is another thing that gets answered in the book. Do you have the book? You should get it. I think like this book is the most amazing thing I've ever done. It's like, it really takes all these, it's like 20 years, really more than that, because I had an additional 15 years of struggling to learn different languages. So it's like 35 years of failure and success, and also lots of experience teaching people. But these are the kinds of things, like pretty much every question that people have about learning, especially learning English, does get answered in the book. But this one in particular, this is a really big problem for people. And I mentioned this again in chapter 1 and also chapter 2. But if you think about how people are learning, I wanted to talk about this actually in the last video, and I almost thought about putting this in the book, but I'll draw it for you here. The reason I did not put this in the book is because I thought it would be a little bit more difficult to explain to people in a book, but it could work all right, or well enough anyway, in a video like this. So something that like, and again, I didn't mention this in the book, but when I was thinking about how this problem of, let's just say we've got like A, B, C, D, E, F. These are all different kinds of methods that you could use to learn a language. So for example, shadowing, for example, listening, for example, writing, or watching movies, or doing whatever. So you got all these different things, and something, like in my case, and what happens with a lot of people is there are lots of different things you can do, but you don't know what's actually helpful for you. So there's a thing, I had not seen this in America, but I discovered it when I came to Japan, and it helped me kind of clear this problem up. But I was a little bit like, this would be a great story for the book, because this is part of the reason I figured this problem out. But again, I thought it was just a little bit too complex. But in Japan, and I think this is in other, I don't know, like other countries have this as well. Like I heard it's in China, I think, but it's not specific to any one country. But this is called an Amida Kuji. So Amida Kuji, this is the Japanese word for it, but it's called, like, I think the English word is like Buddha's lots or something. But it's basically like we're gonna do something, I'll do something kind of interesting for you here. So we cover this, let's see here, I don't have anything better. I got kind of a bag I could use, let's see here. See, again, already it's going to be kind of tricky, you know, to teach this in the book. But again, it's such a perfect example that, okay, we'll just kind of do it here, and people who have the book will understand it even better. But we have a particular thing here, and we have, let's just put like a, I don't know, here's like a pot of gold down here. This is the goal where everybody wants to get, but we don't know exactly how we can get there. And so let's say there is like a line. We're going to draw lines down all of these things here. And the interesting thing is, like, we see the pot of gold here, but we're going to kind of change this up a little bit. So when we show this, typically when people are like doing these things, this is covered up and we're kind of picking one of these numbers or letters up here and seeing which way, like there's kind of an outcome for each one of these things over here. And one of these things is the pot of gold, one of these things is the thing we're looking for, and the rest of them maybe either we don't care or we don't like them or whatever. But this is also a good way to, if you're trying to give people different tasks or something like that, we can make it so it's kind of like a lottery. We don't really know exactly what you're going to get, but a similar kind of thing is like pulling straws. If you have a group of people together and we're going to put some straws in a cup and one of them has a mark on the bottom of it, and whoever pulls that is the person who doesn't get to make whatever the particular thing. So there's some kind of negative result or a positive result like this. But the way these things work is if you have a horizontal line, then let's say you start at A, when you hit the horizontal line you have to go across. So if you start at B, you go here and then you hit the horizontal line, you have to go across the horizontal line if you hit it. So if you start from B, you hit the horizontal line and then you go back down, and then that means this thing is your result. So we're not going from B to B, we're going B down to here and getting that particular thing. So A, for example, we would start here, go down, go here, 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 like that. So this is an Amida Kuji. So interestingly, B goes over here and A goes over here, and then you can see how the rest of these things would play out. Now, the interesting thing, when I really thought about putting this in the book, I really did, but I was like, I mean, you can see it's already like kind of a tricky thing. But the interesting thing is, this is a kind of thing that's actually put on even children's shows here in Japan, like, I don't know, like there's a show called it's like Isu no Machi no Koshi, and it's like a little chair village from what's the name of that show? I forget now. I forget the name of the show. I think it's like I forget, but it's got like a cactus character and a chair character. Maybe the Japanese watchers out there will. Oh, it's called Mitsukitta. Like I found it, like Mitsukitta. Okay, so this is a common thing. Like we will put a person up here, and then here's a treasure or something like that, and we go here. Oh, we got to go down that way. And then we go down to here. Okay, and this kind of situation here, it's tricky if you start from the top. So if I think, okay, which one of these is going to get me to the pot of gold? I'm like, okay, I could start here, and then I go here, and it's like, it didn't get me to the pot of gold. Or maybe I start on this one, like, no, that didn't do it either. What about this one? Like, I go here, and that didn't do it either. Like something like maybe I start with D and go down, and like, D was the answer. Okay, so in these, it's a perfect example of how a lot of people are learning things by trying a lot of different things, and it's a very frustrating and demoralizing process because really you can't know in advance if something will help you without trying it. And so it's like, okay, should I learn with X method? How will that help me? Do I know for sure without wasting my time trying it? And so it's very difficult to know. But if you do these Amida Kuji instead, if we start from the end, then we go up, it's like do. Oh, okay, that's what we're looking for. So that's why instead of me thinking about like what method should I be using, it's a much better thing to start from the end, which is what I do in chapter 1, where I'm talking about a better question. And that better question is, what's really stopping me from speaking? So instead of starting with which method are we using, which method should we work, we begin with the end of what's actually stopping me the moment I try to speak. So in conversations, is it like, did shadowing help me? Or did reading a book help me? Or any of these other things? I don't really know for sure. But in a conversation, when I'm trying to say something, I know, the thing that's actually stopping me at that moment is uncertainty. Okay? And so that leads us into chapter 2 of the book, and we're talking about, okay, well, where does uncertainty come from and how can we get certainty? Which of these things are actually delivering that? And so that's, again, starting from the end, it's much easier to figure out your way back rather than, okay, we'll start with A and then try that. Okay, that didn't work. We do B and try that, and then C and then try that. And then finally, hopefully, maybe we get something, but maybe not. But again, it's a much more frustrating process to start from the beginning rather than starting from the end. Okay? So if you know this, sometimes when people are doing these, the middle section will be covered up like that. So you only know like the top here and you can see the bottom, one of these things here, but you don't know which one, and you're just kind of picking a random thing. So it's like Amida Kuji. Kuji is like kind of lottery. So you're kind of betting or guessing, like maybe it will be that one, maybe it will, maybe it won't, I don't know. Anyway, so this way of thinking is what got me thinking about a better question for learning languages. And that's instead of what method should I use, and that's one of the most common questions I get. So it's the same kinds of questions that people send in emails and like YouTube video comments or whatever. People are saying, should I use this method, or how can I know if that method will work? And again, it's a good question. People want to know that. I wanted to know that also. But it's basically very difficult to answer. So if we instead begin with what's actually stopping people from speaking, then you can figure out what you should be doing to learn. Does that make sense? So you can see why I thought about putting this in the book but did not. But I thought, because this was something I experienced or I discovered early on when I was living in Japan, and I thought, oh wow, like that really, it really shows the problem in a very clear way, where you've got a couple of different things you could be trying, and that number of things, it's actually much longer than this. And now we've got new things. So every day, new apps or new AI or new whatever, all kinds of new things that people could learn with, and people still don't know. It's like, now I've got so many choices, I don't know what's actually good. But if you begin with what's actually stopping you, and for most people that's certainty. So if you lack certainty, you will stop yourself from speaking. All right, that was kind of a long answer to that question, but I thought this would be a good way to explain that. Let me know if that makes sense, though. All right, let's see. So MJ says, I just bought the book. Well, thank you very much. Let me know what you think about it. Burgess says, happy morning. Brittany says, hello, Drew. I feel totally overwhelmed by English. I mean, I already know your method. I've been following you for years, but every time I want to learn a topic, there's always new words, and I try to learn. The book should help you with that. So the book, one of the things that we talk about in chapter 5 is about actually focusing. This is where we really line up or lay out, I should say, the method that I actually use. And so it's actually very simple. It's like really easy, but again, it takes a couple of chapters to prepare people from that, but it will, the book explains all that. Victor says a chiquitibin or something. I don't know if that's, I don't know what that is. Brady says, them all, but I end up jumping from one thing to another and get lost, overwhelmed. Yeah, so that's again what happens. It's a similar kind of idea as this really, but often people are overwhelmed by, maybe they're getting too much information and they really need to focus on something. And so that's again what we talk about in chapter 5. So now we're really going into exactly what you should be doing. So the first 4 chapters of the book are explaining what you should actually be doing, like how does this process work? And then by chapter 5, now we understand, okay, I get it, and now these are the specific things I should do that should give me certainty. And it's really the best things you can do if you're learning by yourself. So the ideal thing is actually to have someone who knows how to help you. It's kind of like a child having a parent. Like a child maybe could figure things out, but it's much easier to have a parent there to guide you and help you with things. All right, so MJ, some more examples with get, and George, it says, hello teacher, regards from Brazil. Brittany again, I really don't know where to start. It's really hard to focus on one thing when I come across lots of words. What should I do? I felt stuck. This is my major problem. So again, I talk about this specific problem in chapter 5. And the reason I talk about this is because I had my own turning point moment, which I mention in the book. It's very timely that you're mentioning this. But what happens is a lot of people, this is probably, certainly for me, was the biggest mistake I made, and I've talked about this quite a bit in videos, but of the various mistakes people could learn or make while they're trying to learn, and I often say that a lot of the struggles people have are not your fault because they aren't. It's really just how you're learning the language, and most people are taught in the same traditional way, whether you're learning by yourself or you're getting lessons from other people. But the thing that is often the fault of learners, and it was certainly my fault, is I was trying to get too much too soon. And for example, I might, let's say I want to very quickly become impressive, and I want to use advanced vocabulary and know how to say cool expressions and all of that stuff, but it's really just, it's me just kind of feeling good and trying to get excited about stuff. And so, for example, I would be getting content that I didn't really understand very well. And so it would be overwhelming me, let's say I had, I don't know, let's say I would listen to something, I could understand 50% of that, and the rest of it I could not. And so I'd have to use a dictionary or get translations or something like that, and this is the thing that really kept me at a low level for being able to speak. So often I would try to press myself and, okay, I'm going to learn more words and try to study harder or whatever, and I would learn a couple more things over here. And so again, I would improve my passive understanding. I could follow other people when they're speaking, but me, I was actually struggling when I tried to speak. And so this is often the biggest problem people have. And so what I actually recommend in the book, so you'll see me talking about this in chapter 5, is you really should be understanding almost everything, 80 to 90% of any new content you're getting. And then you slowly expand upon this, and you can actually do it quite quickly if you're going through the content and making sure you can understand it. But this little part over here, this is the new information. So all of this stuff over here, you already know it, you feel quite confident or even certain about it. And so in a conversation or a movie or a book or something like that, this is where you actually can understand things much better. So especially if you are trying to learn English by yourself, you don't have a teacher or a guide like me just giving you the information and making sure you understand it, this is how you would do it. So this is part of the actual process that I lay out in chapter 5. So we're talking about making sure any new content you get, you understand most of it already. That way any new things you can understand from the context, from that information. It's like getting a puzzle, basically, like we talk about in chapter 4. Hopefully people enjoyed that. I've never really talked about that idea outside of the book, but that's the kind of unifying idea that a lot of people should think oh, now I understand what we're looking for. So we start applying that in chapter 5, and this is one of those pieces. So we really want to help people understand things really well. If you're not understanding content very well, if you need a dictionary and you need like lots of help or translations or whatever, the content is too difficult for you. It's much better to go back to something lower level or whatever, and I promise you, I know it might seem like it's taking longer, but the actual typical way is the thing that really takes longer. And that's why people can struggle for years and not become good speakers, because they're trying to do too much before they're ready. So this is exactly what I did, and I decided, okay, now that I understand what I actually needed to get fluent, then I said, all right, now I'm going to change the way I think about this. I'm going to stop trying to do this and start doing this, and then very quickly I started becoming more fluent. All right, I'm giving longer answers to these questions, but these are great because these are going along with what's happening in the book. All right, so Brittany especially, I think you will really enjoy the book if you don't have it already. Alex says, game over, man, game over. Let's see, MJ says, Drew always gives good instructions what to do. Try to listen to his videos. It helps you find the way to improve and actually use what you already know, not to bury yourself into more material. Yes, and so often you can actually speak better with what you already know. And this is part of what we're talking about here. So often, again, people think they know the vocabulary, but they don't really know it very well. So they can understand, but then they're unable to speak. So that's why I talk about certainty more than understanding, because if I say, hey, you need to understand the vocabulary or the English better, then people will say, well, I already understand it well. I say, all right, well, you don't understand it well enough. And basically, it's just a lot easier to say you're not certain about that. And then once you say the word certain, it's like there's a switch in your brain. Either it's on or it's off. So it's very easy for people to understand. If I want to say something, but I can't because I'm worried about pronunciation or grammar or whatever, then we know the problem is certainty. That switch flips off and we're just thinking, like, I don't want to say something. So we have to be careful with that, but that's how you know when you're feeling confident and when you're not. Elder says, sup Drew, long time no see. Let's have some fun and aha moments. Indeed. Why am I Atchik? I don't know if that's Atchik or if it's Hick or something, depending. What is very helpful books for B1 level? I wouldn't worry about like what your level is. It's just, again, because you might understand some things and not others. And so rather than thinking about a level broadly, it's more, what are the specific things you want to say that you cannot say? That's where I would begin. And that's another thing we talk about in chapter 5. So I don't actually spend any time at all in the book, and I don't plan on it like talking about like C2 or B1 or ZX or anything else like that, the typical kinds of things, because I just find it's not really necessary. Like for me, I don't know what my Japanese level is because I can talk about some things, but lots of things, if I don't know about the information, I don't have the vocabulary, then I can't speak about them very well. So I could probably still have conversations in the same way I could talk with a car mechanic in English, even though I don't know much about cars. But again, most people are maybe good at some things and not others, and they're not being very strategic about solving that by actually getting certain about the things they want to know. Let's see, and MJ says, it's like you know piano notes and you understand it, but you can't play it so well because it needs practice to have muscle memory connection. That's similar to that. But what I talk about in chapter 7 of the book, so we'll come to that one later, language learning is different actually from something like playing the piano. And the main reason is because the output, the actual situation where you would use the language, is unpredictable. So if I'm practicing the piano, I can learn the piano, and I'm even trying to practice a particular song. I can listen to it, I can play it again and again, and practice and practice and practice until I play it perfectly. So that's a different kind of practice. But we need something else for preparing for real conversations. Because again, when I'm in a conversation, it's not like I practiced a song or something, and so this is a thing that often confuses many learners. So they might learn a bunch of vocabulary in a classroom and then try to use that in the real world, and native speakers are like, what? What did you say? I don't understand what. And so again, it's not like practicing a piano. So practice is necessary, but we need a different kind of practice, and that's what we talk about in chapter 7. So you see a little bit of that actually in chapter 5, I think, but people will get the whole picture by the time you're done with the book. Let's see, and then CNC is back. Hello, good to see you. What have you been? What have I been? I don't know. I've been all kinds of things in my life. I've been tired. I've been happy. I've been a manager at a hotel. I've been all kinds of things. Let's see. And a segue. What is your dialect, sir? Where did you grow up? In Chicago, south side of Chicago. Yes, MJ knows. Sergio says, hello, teacher. I hope you are good. I am doing well. What is so helpful books for B1? Again, I wouldn't worry about that. I do talk about books and what you can do in chapter 5, but I want you to think about it in a different way. So where is the book, says Adam. It's on the link at in the description below this video. It is not free, but it is only $5. So if you enjoy what I do and you would like to get the whole thing, if you believe I can help you, and you really want to see, like, I'm working very hard on the book. It's been over like a year since I started it. I wrote a version of it and then deleted that. I wrote another version and deleted that one. And then like this version that I have now, I think is the best thing I've ever written for trying to help people learn languages. But you can click on the link in the description from the description below this video. So Brittany says, how can I get the book? I'm from Peru. It's in EPUB format, isn't it? Yes. So what I'm doing right now, I'm releasing the book in stages before I finish it. That way, if I write the book and just publish it and have a paperback or whatever, then maybe I want to change other things in the book and it's more difficult to do that. So I want to refine the book first, and that's why I'm releasing it in stages. So it's just a digital PDF at this point, so you can get instant access. You don't need to wait for shipping or anything. You just purchase the book from the link in the description below this video, and then you can start reading it right away. MC, nice to see you there. Thanks to a nightmare, I can listen to you in the middle of the night. Oh no. Yeah, I wouldn't call it a nightmare, but I had my own kind of, I would just call it like a bad dream where people were giving me math problems. You ever have that? I mean, even it was like, someone was like, all right, like 3, I don't remember the exact problem, but it was like 3, 6, 8, 4 times a 730 or, you know, something like that. And they were like, solve this problem. And I'm like, like, and it's funny because my older daughter is now doing math like this, and like I completely forget how to do it. And so I was worried maybe people have had those kind of, I don't know, like classroom dreams or whatever. Like, oh no, I didn't do my homework. So I've had those sometimes, like, I don't know, maybe I'm stressed out trying to write this book. I'm trying to push myself and get it done. I want to get it done as quickly as possible. But I want to make sure I do it well. That's why I'm releasing it in stages. Anyway, so I had my own kind of bad dream last night where people were trying to give me math questions. That's why I teach language and not math. But, you know, interestingly, there's some connection there. Snake Pliskin, awesome, look at that. Escaped from New York and LA. Is it really quiet for anybody else? I haven't seen anybody else commenting that it's quiet. I've got the mic at the same level it usually is, but let me know. Zakeen says, hello teacher, I appreciate your lessons. I just want to know how long it takes to get fluent, and I can watch movies and have a full comprehension about it. Get the book, because I talk about that in the book. Again, like when people talk about getting fluent, it's like you become fluent in individual words and phrases. So when you're talking about how long does it take me to get fluent, it's like you could be fluent in a couple of minutes in a particular thing. But being able to watch movies or whatever, like it's a longer thing. It depends on what movies you're interested in or how long they are, that kind of thing. But again, it's an answer that requires more nuance. Aesthetics says hi, and Fabricio says hello from Brazil. Charlie says, I haven't spoken English for a long time to focus on learning French since I moved to France. So I sort of find it clumsy to speak English these days. I ended up being here to get some tips on it. You should get the book. It will also help you learn French. So whatever language you're learning, the explanation in the book, the process of learning and this alternative to the way people typically learn languages, even though some of it is quite similar, it should help you a lot for whatever language you're learning. Bringing about recovery of my English skills. Yeah. Is anyone from India? Yeah, I think we have some people from India here. Sabrina says, I'm trying to learn English by myself. Yes, a lot of people are. So whether you like join a program like Fluent for Life or use Frederick or anything else, or even, you know, watching my videos or whatever, like even this, like you're still getting some kind of help, and most people are getting input from other people in that way. So whether you are learning, you know, by yourself or with an actual teacher, the things in the book will help you a lot, and teachers are getting it as well. Let's see, Burgess again says hi, and Margaret says, please teacher, your speak Is something, maybe something got cut off there. Let me know if is the chat like not working? I think, yeah, it doesn't look like people are saying it's hard to hear or anything. Let me know. I don't know if that word is like spider or something. Let me know. Charlie says those who are at B1 tend to make trivial mistakes while speaking English, I guess, and it takes them some time to transfer English into their mother tongue and vice versa. Yeah, and again, part of that is the thinking about, or traditional thinking about language learning is we understand it in that way. It's like it takes them more time to translate, or they're thinking about things. It's typically because of how they're learning. And again, what we talk about in the book is a different way of understanding fluency development. Brittany, I guess my problem is perfectionism too. I mean, I want to know everything, every detail about it. If I discover I end up biting off more than I can chew. Yeah, that's a good way to express it. And so you can get everything you want, or at least learn more about the things you're interested in if you do it in a systematic way. But if you're just like, I'm trying to go to the dictionary and read every vocabulary word or whatever, it's probably not going to help you very much. And we've got LPLL, I guess. If I listening a lot from you, I can take your pronunciation without practicing speaking. Well, yes, you can certainly improve your pronunciation without even saying anything, sure. Again, like, it's like when I'm reading something in a book, let's say I discover some new word from somebody, or I hear it on a TV show, I'm not actually speaking with the author of the book or the person who's on the TV show, but I can still, when I do speak, I can use that vocabulary. So a lot of this, like, even, and I talk about this in chapter 4 of the book, is most of what happens when you're speaking, that improvement, it really comes from other people, especially if you're speaking with natives and paying attention to what they say. So if you're listening well, getting lots of good examples, that's what's going to help you. And yeah, we can often model a lot of things on our own without me just needing to repeat sounds over and over again. It's really more me being able to tell the difference about things. Like I talk about this, I will talk about Frederick in chapter 5, and how a lot of the pronunciation difficulty that people have comes because they don't get systematic training with a variety of words. But again, it's systematic is the most important part here. Like I say, if I put a word like pine, and then let's see, true, and a turtle, and exact. If I just have you repeat these words after me, okay, repeat after me, class. Pine, true, turtle, exact. Now, you could learn pronunciation this way, and this is often what many people do to learn, because a lot of the vocabulary is just kind of random. But it's less helpful for actually helping you learn what the pronunciation is and how to read certain things and how to do this by yourself. So a better thing is actually to have closer examples where we can compare things. You might hear these called as like limited pairs, but it doesn't really matter what you call them, but it's more like showing things that are similar to each other. It allows the brain to understand and recognize things. This is a lot of what we talk about in chapter 4, but in chapter 5 specifically, we're looking at that like for understanding, learning the sounds of English or developing your listening and pronunciation. So if we compare these two, pine, pin, pine, pin. Without me telling you, you start to develop a sense for what's a rule here maybe about how we might pronounce something. So for example, we might say, we'll give a related example over here. So pain, pain, pan, pain and pan, pine and pin. Now what this teaches us is like, oh, look at that. If we have that E over here, it changes the sound of the I. So sit and sight, says Hassan. Yes, another good example. Sit, sight. So people will call this magic E or silent E, but it's actually affecting the pronunciation of that. So the P and the N don't change, but this does. And so when you're comparing sounds like this, that's a much more efficient, again, systematic way of learning pronunciation. And so we're trying to hear how words are similar like that, like why this thing might work like that. And so that's why I built Frederick, because I didn't have a tool like that to give to my learners. I still don't think anything like that is available on the internet, where it's really easy to collect different sounds like this and compare what they are. Like, it's possible to do it, or you could look up videos of sounds or something like that, but nothing really makes it as simple as Frederick for actually comparing sound differences very easily. So that's one part of it. But again, this is another idea for trying to make learning systematic and making sure it's easy for your brain, and your brain can easily look at differences like light and dark. We can understand those words from context, because when we have light and we have dark, it's like akarui or kurai in the same way, kind of learning English in that way, or learning Japanese in that way. So like light, it's like, like mabushi, or like kurai. And so if I'm teaching you Japanese, I can help you learn some words like that. So there's like akarui is, if I just have to just give you a translation, it's like kind of light, or maybe we got some, some kind of light here, but like mabushi is like, oh, it's bright, like it's too much for me. But kurai is dark. And so you can learn these things in the language itself, and that's what we talk about in chapter 5. So we're actually going through, now that we understand, all right, how the brain works, and our brain basically functions with good puzzles, how do we apply that to language learning, especially if we have to teach ourselves a language we don't know, because again, a lot of people are learning by themselves. So anyway, Frederick, there's also a link for Frederick below this video if you don't have Frederick already, but this is a very good way, because I haven't found anything better. That's why I created it, but it will help you learn things like a native and make sure it's nice and systematic for you. Where did we go here? What did I skip? Lux says, good morning, and CNC, I got you there. I meant, how have you been? Yes, I've been all right, doing well. Anita says, hello everyone, I'm from Sun City. And Majest says, a happy morning. Lux says, sir, can I improve my writing, or how can I improve my writing and speaking? Get the book. It like explains how to do that. Writing is a lot easier to improve because you can copy what other people write, but speaking is like an actual skill that you have to develop. So I show you how to do that in the book. So rather than just like explaining everything again, now I have this book that I can just say, read the book, and click on the link in the description below the video to get it. So that's why I created this. So again, if you're especially been maybe learning for a long time and you're still not happy with how you speak, the book will actually explain what the problem is and how to fix it. So it's probably the same thing most people deal with. I have not yet found a person who like really like couldn't learn with what I'm talking about. Let's see, in CNC again, if you don't mind me asking, I'd like to know, what did you find most interesting about Japan? What did I find most interesting about Japan? You mean like after I came here, something different? Because I already knew quite a bit about the culture before I arrived. I didn't know the language, but something interesting about Japan. Let's see. Well, actually, I'll tell you something. One interesting thing I found. Actually, there are kind of like small things. I actually thought about doing a YouTube video or even a YouTube channel about stuff about Japan. I know there are lots of people doing that already. I mean, there are also people now, like many people teaching English or whatever, but just kind of small things that I notice. But one thing that I thought was interesting, and I'd really like to do almost like a science experiment about it, is we've got, like, especially in Nagasaki, I think maybe I talked about this before on the channel, maybe, but so we have in Nagasaki like a streetcar. You might call it a trolley, a streetcar, like in San Francisco, And then we have buses. And then we have trains also. And I noticed, at least I think, I don't know if this is true, but I have a feeling that bus drivers have the lowest voice. Streetcar drivers have like the second lowest voice, and the train drivers have the highest voice on average. So I just noticed that, and I kind of notice stuff. I think that's why I've been able to write this book, because I needed to notice a lot of things in order to write it. But yeah, I think maybe I think bus drivers, maybe because they have to talk a lot more. You don't really hear much from streetcar drivers and trains. But typically when I hear people, bus drivers in Japan, or at least here in Nagasaki, they have the lowest voice. It's like, hashashimasu, like, here we go, even like lower than what I'm doing there. But anyway, that's something interesting about Japan, and I don't know what it means or if it's even true, but there's something for you. Let's see. Lex says, sir, this comprehensive method is excellent in learning English. Get the book, because I actually talk about that. People who have already read chapter 4 will be able to answer that for you. But yes, so that's, again, you can see here, like, lots of people are still, and they will continue to be interested in particular methods. But it's a waste of time to think about methods before you understand what's really stopping you from speaking. So that was a thing. I spent 15 years trying to learn different languages and failing to do that. And every time I'm still thinking, what method should I use? And so finally, when I think, like, wait a minute, that's not really the right question, and that's why I start the book with that story, where we're really trying to talk about what's actually blocking me from speaking. Let's see. I think we got a couple left here. Aziz says, sir, why I'm able to understand every word you're saying, but I can't speak like you. So this is interesting. Like, again, it's that people have really like these same questions, and it makes sense. Like, people want to know why that happens, and that's why I wrote the book. So I explain that in the book. You should click on the link in the description below this video, because if you want to know the answer to that question, you will probably want to know the answers to other common questions as well. And so the book actually lays out what you should do in order to learn. So Hassan's got some more good examples there, and C says, sometimes I feel cranky because of I want to learn as quickly as I can, but at the end of the day, I realize I have to take time in order to rest my brain. Yeah, so that's part of it. Like, we are not robots, and we have to take a little bit of time to think about what we are learning, or if we push ourselves too quickly, then we might not remember what we learn. There's some problems there. Flavia says, I'm Brazilian. I'm studying English and Japanese. Look at that. Rustam says, seeing you, Mr. Teacher, it is like to be on another country, like traveling to America. Good experience, thank you. Well, welcome. San says, by the way, the aha moment happens after awareness or after ownership? It's typically ownership. But again, like, try not to think about it like it happens at a particular point, like in understanding. It just means you understand something really well. So like, you kind of own something after you have the aha moment. So you could be aware of something, but still something is stopping you from using that word or phrase. And the aha moment, like, you can also feel confident about saying something without having an aha moment. That's just like a specific way that we really want to help people learn more efficiently, and we actually know it's working because we can feel it happening at the time. And so if I'm learning something and I don't really understand it, then maybe I can't use it very well. I will struggle with whatever, and I could maybe still understand it. But again, that's why I talk about in the book about how the things that can give you certainty, like, you can study a lot and really force yourself to remember things and do things the traditional way and still become a good speaker. You could do that. It's just much more taxing on your body. So it's more difficult, like mentally, you know, like CNC was just talking about how you need to pace yourself if you try to push yourself too much. And often traditional methods are forcing people to do that. So it's giving them more information than they can handle, or they're having to do things that their brains don't really want to do. So again, you could feel certain about something even if you don't have an aha moment that taught you that information. Like I could just, you know, like brushing my teeth or whatever. I've done it so many times, I can do it with my eyes closed, and I have a routine, I know how it works. I didn't really have an aha moment about that, but it's same kind of idea. Aziz says, sir, is it true that the price of the book is $5 because the website shows me that? Yes, that is correct. If the website shows you that, then that is true. Brittany says, a good evening from Yana Chupi. The comment is kind of cut off there. But I think somebody is like, somebody also said that same thing. I don't know if that's, I don't know, that's probably some kind of joke or something, I guess. Let's see, Tamim says, we aren't robots. He said, we are not robots. All right, maybe some of us are, I guess. There might be some bots over here. CNC says, no worries at all. Here in Colombia, you can find a lot of streetcar and street vendors everywhere, I guess. What they use the loudspeakers to sell bananas and food, and it's a little awful. You mean the food is awful, or the loud voices of people selling stuff? Either way, it sounds interesting though. I remember I went to Colombia. I was in Bogota. When was that? It was a couple of years ago. That was a fun trip though. I enjoyed the city, a nice place. I had trouble breathing a little bit though. Like I was kind of surprised about that. So that was there's my thing, surprising thing about Colombia is I had trouble breathing. Like, wow, it's kind of like higher up in the, you know, up in the mountains or whatever. And so I'm like actually feeling kind of tired, like, wow. Anyway, hopefully I've answered some questions here, but you'll see, like, again, because I get these same questions often, and a lot of people have them because traditional methods actually make things quite difficult for people, unfortunately. But there is an alternative, and that's what I talk about in my book. So if you'd like to know more about that, just click on the link in the description to get the book. Chapter 5, let's see. Should be in a few days, I think. I'm hustling, working as hard as I can to get it done, but I want to make sure I do it well, so when it feels good, I will release it, and then we will continue moving forward. But again, you can click on the link in the description. Frederick is down there too if you'd like to get the app. But that'll be it for this video. Thank you for joining me. If you have any questions, you can post them down below or send us an email at info@englishanyone.com, and we'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye.